So, hi, my name is Muhammad Amruddin Zarif Zulkafli. So, the issue is that whether useless that legal actions against his mother, which is made useful for breach of contracts. So, refer to Section 26 Contract Act 1915. This provides that agreement without consideration is void. So, Section 2D Contract Act 1950, when at the desire of the promisor is the promisee or any other person has done or abstain from doing or does or abstain from doing or promises to do or to abstain from doing something such act for abstinence or promise is called a consideration for the promise. In order to buy the promise or act or the other, the promiser has to make consideration toward the promise. So let's pass to another
Hello
person.
and Assalamualaikum. My name is Muhammad Arhamizat bin Mahilmi. So now I'm going to talk about classification for the consideration in this scenario. So based on the case, the classification for this consideration is executory act, which is a promise made in exchange for the performance of act. So in this case, Madam Useful offered a monthly expense of 1,000 ringgit and a single story house with exchange of useless return to Ipoh and continue his study in College Professional Mara Ipoh. So following that, a case relevant to this is in Ventaka Chenaya versus Verikatara Maya 1881. Defendant agreed to pay annuity of 653 rupees to her brothers, on condition that their mother give her a piece of land. A plaintiff then sued the defendant when the defendant failed to pay as promised. The defendant was liable to pay the annuity. There was a valid consideration even though the promise or the consideration came from their mothers. So that's all from me. Now we mitigate. Next time.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Muhammad Irfan bin Arifin from class TLM 4C. So today I want to talk about our consideration part. So Useless enter in an agreement with Madam Useful that he will return to Ipoh and continue his study in accountancy at College Professional Mara. And as a return, Madam Useful offer Useless to provide him with RM1,000 ringgit for Useless monthly expenses and a single story terrace house. But after 6 months, Madam Useful stopped giving Useless expenses and asked Useless to leave the house Useless was living in. So, Useless can take legal action against Madam Useful because the contract was valid in the first place, where based on the Malaysian law of contract, in order to create a valid contract, the contract must fulfill all the elements of valid contract, which are offer, acceptance, consideration, certainty and consent. The case above does have all the elements, so it is a valid contract. So that's all for me about our consideration part.
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am Siti Murshidah binti Muhammad Malik and I will talk about the application. Based on the above law, the contract between Madam Useful and Useless is valid as it falls under the classification of executory consideration because Madam Useful offered to give Useless monthly expenses and a single story house if Useless returns to Ipoh and continue his studies. However, Madam Useful failed to fulfill her promise after 6 months due to misunderstanding with Useless. Therefore, the contract is void as Madam Useful broke her promise. If there was no misunderstanding between Useless and Madam Useful, the agreement will still be going on until Useless graduates and the contract will not be void. while useless need not to take legal actions against Madam Useful. So, in conclusion, useless can take legal actions against Madam Useful as the contract was valid from the beginning, based on the classification of executory consideration.
Hello guys, now we meet again. So now I'm gonna continue what my friend said on the topic of intention to create legal relation. So there are two presumptions of the existence of intention to create legal relation, which are social, domestic and family agreement. The other one is business agreement. In this case, the presumptions of the existence of intention to create legal relation for Madam Useful and useless is social, domestic and family agreement. The law treats social, domestic and family agreement as agreement without intention to create legal relation. The relevant case for this situation is the case of Balfour versus Balfour at 1919. So that's all from me, Muhammad Ramazat. Thank you.
Here we meet again. So next, I want to explain about our intention to create legal relation for this case. So the issue in this case that we can analyze is whether useless can take legal action against his mother or not. So based on Malaysian law of contract, general rule agreement itself does not create binding contract. It must be intended to be legally enforceable. Intentions to create legal relations simply means that the parties to the agreement are ready to face any implication if they fail to perform the terms under the contract. So the relevant contract for this contract is Contract Acts 1950 is silent on the intention to create legal relations. So this is my part. Thank you.
Alright, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So we meet again. I am Siti Mushidah and I will talk about the case between Balfour versus Balfour. So in the case Balfour versus Balfour, the defendant was a civil servant stationed in Ceylon, Sri Lanka, and while on leave in England, he has promised to pay his wife a monthly allowance of £30 until she returned to Ceylon. The defendant defaulted the promise and the wife sued him for breaching the contract. So, the help is there was no legally binding agreement because the parties did not intend to be bound by legal consequences. However, the presumptions of non-existent intention to create legal relations in social, domestic, and family agreements may be rebutted.
So let's continue to second questions. Based on what we can see from the law at above, the case is under family agreement. Why? How do we know? Let's check it out. This is because Madam Useful offered Useless 1,000 ringgit Malaysia as his monthly expenses and a single-story terrace house if Useless agreed to return to Ipoh and further his study. And after 6 months, there was a misunderstanding between him and Madam Useful that his mother stopped giving him the expenses and asked him to leave the house. However, the case in family agreement may be rebutted. So, what is the conclusion about this statement? So, in conclusion, the law treats family agreement without intention to create legal actions. There was no legally binding agreement because the parties did not intend to be bound by legal consequence. Therefore, failure to fulfill the promise will not be subjected to legal actions. So that's all from this question.